Very rainy Cheshire this morning. It's bright out there, but it's been raining for quite a while. But hey, it's good for the garden, so can't complain. Today we've got something totally different again. The joy of doing this project, really and truly, is the variety of photographs that people send to me to interpret into paintings. And I say interpret deliberately because we're not trying to be photographs, we're trying to be paintings. That's the whole point of this. They've already got a photograph. That's what they're sending me. They don't want a photograph. They don't want me to sit here and recreate their photograph absolutely minutely so that what you're looking at is a piece of paper that has a photograph on it. They've already got a photograph. What they want is a painting. So what we do and what we are going to do this morning is we're going to reinterpret this painting. Well, this photograph. I mean, not painting, obviously. Here we go. That is very, very different from anything that I've done before. And it's very different from anything that we've done so far in this project. Of course, in this project we have done portraits so far. We've done figure paintings. We've done seascapes. We've done a couple of cars. This is totally new territory, and I am really excited to do this. This is from James. James is one of my best followers, definitely, on Facebook, and he sent me this picture yesterday. This picture was taken, I believe, by his son yesterday. I think I did say where. I can't remember now off the top of my head, but he did say where it was taken. I'll look that up on the email that he sent me. But this presents totally different challenges for us than we've been dealing with so far. And one of the biggest challenges, of course, is going to be interpreting that smoke, steam, more like, isn't it? Because it's white, of course. It's not. It's steam coming out of the engine there and going up into the trees. Because at times that's going to be, it's working soft and hard edges. I think that's the thing. You can see that in the lower part of the steam, where it's near to the engine, we've got a lot of softness. There is a bridge going above the train, but the bridge disappears into that steam, and where it disappears is partly hard and partly soft. Where the tree is up at the top corner of the steam, if the steam can have a corner, I think you know what I'm getting at, we have a hard edge. But as it comes down and goes into the sort of... You'll have to excuse me just for a moment. Thank you very much. Little instrumental break. That took me by surprise. I forgot about that. That is, well, listen. I'm working here in an outbuilding. It's a very small outbuilding, but my studio is in an outbuilding, and of course, if anybody comes to the front door, I don't know. So I have a remote doorbell in the studio here. I don't need to run off at the moment because there are people in the house that can deal with it. But just occasionally, you might hear that tune, or there is another door with another doorbell on, so you might get a little variety and get the other tune. Doesn't happen very often. Where we live, we hardly ever get anybody coming to the house. You know, we're out on the edge of a village in the countryside, so it shouldn't happen. Shouldn't happen very often. That'll be some kind of parcel delivery, I imagine. Anyway, back to the painting. Right. Hello, Gordon. Good morning. It's nice to have somebody join so early in the proceedings. People tend to drift in and out during the day, understandably so. It goes on for a long time. Feel free to, ask anything you want to as you go along, or just comment. I don't mind. Right, where were we? Oh, yes, of course, we were looking at the train. Here we go. Yeah, so basically, where the steam disappears into the bushes there, into the at the edge, we go soft again. But the steam also, it's like a cloud. It's got soft bits and harder bits and everything. So we're going to deal with that pretty early on in the painting. We've also got, of course, the railway tracks to deal with, and we need to keep those pristine. They are such clean straight lines that we need to make sure that we have clean straight lines and the way they are converging on and coming towards us. We've got that wonderful perspective that those lines give us to work with, which is fantastic. And we've got some almost false atmospheric perspective created by the steam lightening everything up in the distance, which gives us a lovely sense of distance in the picture. What we're going to do first is what we tend to do. First and foremost, in these situations, you will see my hand come across and fiddle with this tablet often today. Unfortunately, the tablet I usually use has been playing up and for some reason is refusing to charge in here. But if I take it upstairs and plug it in upstairs, it charges. So I've had to take that one away because it's just not got enough power in it to last us the day. And so I'm working off a different tablet here. I'm working off an Amazon Fire HD, and I haven't had time to fiddle with it to try and make it stay on permanently, so it keeps turning itself off as I'm working, which is going to be irritating for me. But hey, I'll try not to go on about it too much. Apologies for the sound if you can hear traffic in the background today. It's gets very warm in this little studio of mine, so I had to open the door. It was too hot working in here yesterday for comfort. Even on these days where it's a bit rainy and everything, in here it gets very warm. And yesterday it was too warm for the paint a lot of the time. So I've got the door open this morning, which means that you will hear, you can probably hear the bleeping of a vehicle reversing at the moment and all that sort of thing. But hey, life goes on, and who am I to shut it out? There we go. It's a strange thing, the tech side of this live streaming thing and everything. I'm just basically trying to allow you, the great wide world, in on what I would be doing in this studio anyway. But there's a tendency to go, it's like I'm doing a television program, so I need to be very professional and need to be very sort of, Bob Ross and all that sort of thing. But I think these particular paintings, they take me time. They take me a few hours. If you've been watching over the past few days since I started this, it's been just over a week now since I started doing this live online. you will have noticed that they take hours, and there's no television presenter, or no radio presenter for that matter, who can sit and talk continuously with you for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours in a day. So this is bound to be a little bit what should I say, hopefully not amateurish. I don't like that word, but informal, let's say. I do try and engage with you all as much as possible. In fact, when you chat to me through the chat room, it really makes the day go in a much more pleasant way, which is nice. I'm happy to converse as I paint. I can do that. That's not a problem for me. Actually, I don't think I should have done that. I'll bet I might take that one off again. I probably will take that one off again when it's dry. What I don't want to end up with is a strange sort of line there on the edge of the steam. I can end up masking too much, but in a way better to mask too much than too little, because it's much easier to not put paint in an area than to put paint in an area and then realise it's wrong and start having to mess with it to tidy it up. So Gordon, whereabouts in the world are you? That's something that interests me. So far I've had people watching simultaneously from Texas and from India, which is really cool as far as I'm concerned. One of my followers and friends online, Dhiraj, lives in India, and he sent me a photograph. I'll put it on something. Might put it on Facebook later, actually, because it's a great photograph. He sent me a photograph the other day, and we were in. He'd put it on the television, and the kids would pop in occasionally and watch it and everything. In India, so I like to think I was on television in India, which I think is rather cool. But I think it's amazing to think that here's me sitting in my little studio here in the Cheshire countryside, and people all over the world are just tuning in and just watching me paint. It really is quite cool, really. It's quite exciting. What I'm doing here, obviously, this is going to be one of the most important things in the painting, and that is keeping the paper, the white of the paper, where these railway tracks are, and preserving them. As if we mask them out right at the beginning, we can do anything we want and they'll still be there when we need them at the end. Birmingham. So you are in a foreign country then? He says, Nah, joking. There we go. It's funny, Birmingham is not a place that I've really spent any time in. Been there a few times, obviously it's not that far away from where I am here. It's I was born and brought up in Stoke-on-Trent, and of course we're all depending on where you live in Stoke-on-Trent, because we're quite a hilly area. You would either get Granada television, this is when I was a child and there weren't many stations. You would either get Granada television or you would get Midlands television. So you either, when it came to the regional television programmes after the news in the evening, you would either have to listen to all this stuff about Manchester, or, as we did, listen to all this stuff about Birmingham. So I knew it was a place that we felt that we were supposed to be associated with, but we didn't actually feel very close to Birmingham. It was very odd. I think that's exactly what you need, Gordon. I agree. Best of both worlds. We're on the edge of a village here, but we are the last house in the village. Just before you leave the village, we're one of the last houses. So as I look out from the studio here, all I can see are fields and trees and all that sort of thing. Which is really nice. But we've got a little shop down the road, and 2 miles down the road we're in Nantwich. So it's really nice to have the best of both worlds, definitely. I can tell you now that this system with this particular tablet is going to irritate me because it's turning off too frequently. I need to have a little pause in a few minutes. I'll keep talking at the same time and just get into the settings and try and stop it turning off so often, because when you're trying to paint from it, that's really irritating. This is probably quite a laborious process to watch, the masking of everything, but it's one of those things that it's worthwhile spending time doing at the beginning and getting right, because it will mean that I can be much freer when I come to paint in everything that's surrounding it, and it will be, once it's taken off, it will be a little on the rough side, but you will see if you watch that bit when it comes off. I will then go around it and I will sharpen it all up with the brush and reclaim the sharpness of the edges that latex doesn't unfortunately give. do is I'll put this masking on, and then while the masking dries, I shall Oh right, yes indeed, Crewe. It's a different world as Crewe, I tell you. It's funny. I never imagined myself living near Crewe again. I actually, when I was a young man, which is about 1,000,000 years ago, my first, no, my second, I worked in the theatre for about 10 years, and my second theatre job back in 1977 was in Crewe, at what's now the Lyceum Theatre in Crewe, but back then was just called Crewe Theatre, and it was a repertory theatre, and so I lived in Crewe back then for well, a season. I think from about October till I think it was May, yeah. And I met my first wife. She was the assistant technician in the theatre. I was an assistant stage manager and deputy stage manager. And I actually really quite enjoyed living in Crewe back then. It was quite different to the way it is now, to be honest, in many respects. But at the moment it's a place that is totally in a state of change, really. It's got run down over the years, neglected over the years, and they seem to have found some money from somewhere, and they are in process of like demolishing a huge area in the town centre to rebuild it and regenerate it, which it desperately needs. But it's going to take a while to do it, obviously. But when it's done, it should be an awful lot nicer to be in Crewe. Nantwich, of course, is a different state of affairs. Nantwich is pretty. It's a lovely old market town. Got a lot of its old buildings still and everything. We've got the river running through it, and Nantwich is nice. It's a nice place to live. It hasn't got any really of the what you call the big shops and all that sort of thing. It's got a lot of small shops, which is nice, and cafes and that sort of thing. I think it's what you might call a polite place, Nantwich. Genteel, I would say. It's a nice area of the country to live here, in many respects. I mean, even when I lived in Stoke-on-Trent, and everybody jokes about Stoke-on-Trent. If you want to tell a joke on television, just mention Stoke, and you'll get a laugh, you know. But even when I lived in Stoke-on-Trent when I was young, it was a good place to grow up. It was a nice place to grow up. like everywhere else, they've let it go to the dogs over the years. It's not been particularly well managed in many respects, but it is a place that was once a thriving hive of industry, you know, had its place in the world. Made for 250 years, Stoke-on-Trent was the centre of China production in the world. So it had a great artistic tradition, which was nice as I was growing up, because that's what I was interested in: art and drama and music and everything, and it did have a lot of that at that time, which is great. Well, it's alright, Gordon, thank you for popping in, and pop back in a bit later on and see how I'm getting on. No problem. Have a nice day. As we're saying goodbye to Gordon, and I can see that there's somebody else out there watching. Feel free to chat if you want to, or just watch. I don't mind. You'll see that what I'm doing at the moment here is I am just masking out with some masking fluid the train lines, so that I can work on the so that I can work on the front area when I get to that, without any danger of losing without any danger of actually losing those train lines, which have got to stay clean and clear. Same goes, I'm also going to mask out this area at the front. It will be easier than trying to work around it, and I can just darken it down at the end. If you are interested, if you're an artist and you're watching this, especially if you're just starting out with watercolour, I think masking is one of the most important things to get to grips with. If you can get to learn how to see at the beginning in the painting what needs to be worked on later on, and what you need to save. Let's put it that way. What you need to save. Then you give yourself. There's an awful lot of things you can do once you've got masking fluid on the paper that you can't do in other ways very easily. And of course, when you're putting masking fluid on, you want to make sure, I have at the moment saying this nearly every day, but I'm aware that some of you will be watching this particular section of these videos for the first time, and you might not have seen the other videos where I've talked about it. If you are going to use masking fluid, do not try applying it with a brush. All you will do is ruin your brushes. Masking fluid is horrible to brushes. It really is. It's not. It really doesn't do them any favours whatsoever. It kills them. Especially in nice watercolour brushes. And if you're the sort of person that's been out and invested tidy sum in buying some nice quality sable brushes or whatever. The last thing you want to do is dip them in masking fluid. Just after I'd said this the other day, I accidentally, instead of plunging my brush into my water, plunged it straight into the masking fluid pot, which was nearly an awful thing. Luckily, I realised what I'd done in a split second, and I was able to wash it off very quickly and get it out of the brush. But what I'm using here to apply the masking fluid, as you will see, this is called a mapping pen, if you're not familiar with it. And basically it's two metal jaws that you can open or close using this little twirly knob here, and the wider you open it, the bigger the line it'll put down. They use it, it's called a mapping pen because cartographers use it when they're putting things like roads and rivers and things like that onto maps. It gives us an even line, and it's great for doing masking fluid because you can just wipe the masking fluid off it, pull it off with your fingers as it sets, whatever. It saves your brushes. The other thing that you would use to put on masking fluid is one of these. It's called a colour shaper. You can get them in nearly all art shops. I don't really use it for anything else, but I do use it for applying large areas of masking fluid. It's absolutely, it's great for putting large areas of masking fluid down. And then again, you can just peel the masking fluid off if it starts to set on it. If the masking fluid starts to set, which it does quite quickly as you're working with it, if it starts to go off and you're using a brush, that brush is tainted, as they say. Right. While the masking fluid dries, because we don't want to work on this thing until it's dry, if you bear with me for a few minutes, I am just going to try and get into the settings of this tablet and to stop it turning off all the time while I'm trying to work. The Amazon tablets, these Fire HD tablets, they're fine, they're dead cheap. And in many ways they're absolutely fine for an awful lot of things, but they're very different in the way that, even though they're running Android underneath it all, they are very different in the way that they do things. So I have to go searching, display. So let's try display. Sleep. 30 minutes, that's better. That'll stop it turning off all the time. Fantastic. Get the photos back. That should stop me having to fiddle with that all the time. I've got a stand here. I ought to get another one really. I've got a stand here, but it's meant to put your tablet in it, landscape. Landscape and portrait and all that sort of thing. But I'm working on a picture here that is what you would describe as portrait in format, and I'm having to do this weird stand trick with a pencil, and it's very, very precarious, and just every so often I knock it flying, which you will probably see if you hang around for any length of time today. Right, we nearly get there. I can see that the masking tape, the masking fluid is drying. I'm going to take this bit off again I put that bit on and then I decided I didn't really want it. Let's just peel that off. Don't really want anything that might go as a funny edge when it comes to the application. Of the smoke. Oh, actually the steam, I think would be a better description. There we go. Now then, that steam, I'm going to work on the steam and the sky before I do anything else. That's definitely what I'm going to do. Get it in before we put any other paint on, and then we can decide as we go. We can re-wet it, and if we want soft edges, and we can just work into it. If we want the harder edges, which we want a little mixture of, we don't want one or the other, we want a bit of both, so to speak. Right, if you've just joined me, we're working today on this photograph here that James has sent me. This is a real challenge. This is, oh, actually I can see something here that I need a little bit more masking fluid on. This is a real challenge. I have not done, I don't think I've done a railway scene before, actually. Can't remember whether I did one during the last I Paint Your Life challenge that I did a few years back. Don't think I did. So this is nice. It's nice to do something that you've not done before. And I like puzzles, you know. I do. I like to do crossword puzzles on my phone and everything. And there's an element when you get any scene in front of you, whether you're doing it from life, you know, if you're out plein air painting, which I love to do, or if you are working in the studio or you're working as I am here from other people's photographs as inspiration. It's nice to actually enjoy the problem solving element of it all. Each scene will give you different things that you've got to do, and just it's good to. One of the reasons why I enjoy the masking process so much is it's a way of starting to analyse the painting, to analyse the scene. I like to spend time to actually just soaking it all in and actually just looking at it and analysing it in my head before I even put any paint down. We have got a very grey English day here, and I think it's very tempting to put a blue sky in. What do you think? Do I go for a blue sky? Uh, Part of me says it might make a prettier painting, but another part of me says no. And I'll tell you why. See if you agree with me. I'll tell you why. The light in this scene is not the light that you would get if there was a blue sky. The colours are not the colours that you would get if there was a blue sky. If there was a blue sky, those greens in the trees would be more vibrant, and so would the greens on the ground in between the tracks. And also, if there was a bright blue sky, those rails would end up being brighter and occasionally bluer to some degree, because they would be reflecting the blue sky above. So that scene says grey British day all over it. So we're not going to even attempt a blue sky. What we're going to do is we are going to go with a traditional British grey, grim, overcast day. And so what I've got here on my brush is a little bit of a colour known as neutral tint. Now, if you're watching this on Facebook and you've got the leading subtitles coming up on your screen, I said neutral, Neutral, tint, Tint, and I'm saying this clearly for the sake of those Facebook subtitles. I did not say neutral teat or neutral anything else that you might be putting on the screen. I said neutral tint. Do you know, those subtitles, if you watch them, they are nothing like the things that I'm saying. And to be honest, it can be a bit objectionable, because it had me the other day saying something that was very, very rude, and I hadn't said that at all. So we're going to pop on very quickly a grey British sky with a little bit of variation in it there. Just keep it wet. What we don't want is hard edges to form in the sky, and we want a little bit of variation, but not much. It is an overcast day, so let's just let it we'll go with that. And while it's wet, I can just move it around a little bit. I've just realised I have got the wrong camera on, so you're not seeing anything that I'm doing. Thank you. You could have said, if you're watching and you realise that I'm talking about things that you can't see, please, please, please tell me in the chat, because I'm trying to be my own producer here at the same time as being the presenter and all the rest of it, and I haven't actually quite yet mastered the art of remembering everything. And I've just realised that the sky, I'm saying I don't want any hard edges, and the sky comes all the way down here in the background. So I want to make sure that I bring it down here. That's fine. I'll just let that just dry a little bit around here before I try and put the smoke in, because I do want to create a slightly harder edge there. So for that we need this sky area to be dry. This, to me, I likened it the other day in one of the videos I was talking about the other day. I likened it to this part of it to fishing. I used to love fishing when I was a teenager, when I was a kid. I used to love going fishing. I was absolutely fishing mad for a few years. And one of the great joys of fishing, of course, is let's soften that. One of the great joys of fishing is the peace and tranquility. You spend all this time getting on your kit there, and you're packing it all up at home, and you're making sure you've got everything in this big carrying case thing that you've got. I used to have one of those lovely old-fashioned fishing baskets that you use with a seat as well. And you've got all your rods, and you take everything with you, and you drag it all out to wherever you're fishing, and you set it all up. And you've probably spent ages and ages making your ground bait and all this sort of thing. And then you get to the water, you have a little bit of activity putting it all together, and you cast out into the water, and you sit down, and there's peace. And that is what this is like when you're painting, I think, in watercolours. You can't just keep going at it. You have to take time. You have to take time and let the paper dry in certain places. Otherwise, you can keep working on it and it's not going to do what you want it to do. And what we want this to do is to give us a little bit of a harder edge here. It's starting to dry now. Probably it's dried enough because we don't want a hugely sharp edge. And what we're going to do now is we're going to work on the smoke. The smoke, of course, is predominantly soft. Here and here, it's like working clouds. You do want the occasional dark bit, just to delineate and get shapes in there, but an awful lot of it is down to it being soft. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to wet the page beforehand, and we're going to make sure that we've got a good amount of water. We don't want it drying out quickly as we were. We're going to come down here. And we're going to come down here. And once this area is nice and damp, we're going to take some of that neutral tint that we've just put in the sky, and we're going to add a little touch of burnt umber to it, just to warm it slightly. And we're going to start to put it into we don't want to lose the the brightness of it, but we do want it to be a little uneven. And one of the great things for that is using, I use kitchen roll on my left hand here, and as I put it on and I feed the smoke, the colour in to create the smoke, remembering that it is going to dry as we do it. It's going to dry lighter, so we don't need to worry too much about it being that dark, but we can put them, and if we dab some of it off with the kitchen roll, we can see textures starting to arise in the smoke, and we want to be able to put, you know, like when you get one cloud in front of another, and of course the bottom of the cloud is darker than the top of the cloud because the sun is hitting the top of the cloud. So you can get a variation in the clouds, and that's what I'm trying to get here with the smoke. I can try to indicate a variation in the clouds. Now we're going to go grayer here, so we're going to put more neutral tint, and we're going to go, as we go into the bushes here, we're going to go grayer. Not that grey, that is a bit too dark, but doesn't matter at the moment because we're going to go in here with our kitchen roll and dab into it, and create that sense of, hopefully create that sense of movement in the smoke, and the sense of different densities of the smoke. We're trying to work very subtly in this. We want it to be, we want some delineation occasionally. Now it's drying a bit down here, so I might just wet it a little more, maybe. I'll let it dry over here because I'm going to go into, put some more darks in there. This is the little bit where it goes into the bushes and goes darker. Let's work down here. Let's wet it again down here. And just slightly blue it as we come down, and I've done that with a little touch of Payne's Grey, which will give us and as well as putting it on with my as well as putting it on and taking it off with the kitchen roll, I'm also able to put it on and shape it with my brush by drying the brush as I go. Now that edge there is fine, just want to soften it a little bit. There's hardly anything on the brush at the moment at all. Just colouring it down. And of course the smoke is coming out of the stack. So we want to make sure that we indicate that. And we indicate that by putting in the watching out for hard edges here. Just tickling them out a bit. You can have slightly hard edges, that's absolutely fine. Because within the smoke you will get variations and they will create edges just like clouds do as they overlap each other. And if you want to light an area to appear bright, well, just put in an area that's darker and the two will contrast each other nicely. There we are. We've got some movement in the smoke. I know how easy it is to see on the video, but we are creating movement in the smoke. Now it's nice and dry here, so I'm going to just put some darker colour in at this point and start to bring it round. It's still leaving bits of the white. We want to create steadily this idea of it puffing, and I think we want to bring a little bit of the bluiness into it as we come down here. Now we don't want these edges to be that hard, so let's just give them a dab and then work into them gently once we've dabbed them. We want them to soften as they go, and we want to create sort of smokiness in this bottom bit. As it comes down. It's worth taking a bit of time to actually work on things like clouds and smoke and that sort of thing, and to actually get used to seeing the shapes in it and the forms in it. And to get so that you can sort of tickle them into place, I suppose, with your brush. Now this wants to go much darker around here, but still with light areas in it. We don't want that hard line though, so we'll soften that line and let it go gradually darker in this area. Now as we come up here, we can work on this here. This bit here is a lot darker under this bridge, but we'll start off by just knocking it down to a sort of uniform darker tone. Leaving that edge there, which will to indicate that the smoke is coming out steam or whatever it is coming out of the smokestack of the train. And then as we've got that in, we can now get some more of the colour and just darken it down a bit and work into this area, which is predominantly well, it's just really very much a lot darker than the other smoke. We're still going for a soft movement. We don't want anything hard. We still want to keep it soft. Don't worry that that looks too dark, because if we wanted to, we could lift some off later on. But you'll find that as it goes, you've got the building at the side here, which is a dark, and almost the darkest part of the entire painting, except for a bit over here, is the engine. And the engine will go in here and will make the this here, as the engine goes in so dark, this will seem a lot lighter, because it's the contrast between these things that makes them stand out. Now let's wet that down. Don't want that to go too dark in there. I'll just soften a line there a little bit, just a tiny touch. And just a little bit of smoky movement in there. I mean, I'm literally working with almost water. There's so little pigment in here. And while it's still damp, we're going to put in these bits here. Is it damp enough still? We'll find out. Or we can always work against them. which is the darkness of another building in the background. Just appearing in the smoke. Let's dampen it a little bit more. What we're doing is we're working all the time what's known as wet in wet. We're working onto a damp that's it, that's nice. We're working onto damp paper so that the edges of the area that we're working in blur into the smoke. And then we're going to just occasionally just put a little touch in to darken it even more in places. That's it. Now we let that dry. And as that dries, that's working now not with the neutral tint, but with a little Payne's Grey, which is a bluey grey, not too wet. We can let's wet this. Let's wet this here. This area here and here. Damp rather than soaking wet, because I want to put in with the Payne's Grey here put it in and take it off until we start to get the bit of the bridge that's going in the background indicated through the steam. Just gently. Keep the feel of the smoke coming out of the smokestack. We don't want to lose that. It's good to have a gentle touch at this point. I'm not putting any of the sharp lines in yet. That up here. I'm just literally putting in the toning that's in the background. The smoke that's behind the bridge. As I'm doing this, of course, what I am delineating is the edge of the actual cloud of smoke by what I'm putting in the background, and I'm trying to keep it gentle and a mixture of soft and hard, really. Again, it's getting that mixture of soft and hard. I think this might be dry enough to. This is a soft dark line at the bottom of the bridge. Don't want anything sharp in there, really, at the moment. We've put one or two bits of sharp lines in a minute where the bridge actually emerges from the smoke, but in the meantime we just keep it sort of soft. Take that down a little bit more. Okay. That's interesting. As I've worked into this, the light must have changed in the room. Let me just adjust my camera slightly. Above our heads. Excuse the wobble. We're losing a lot of definition on this one on the camera. It's very light. Let me try shutting the door. It's warm enough in here. It's cool enough in here now to shut the door. Aha! There we go. Now you can see it. Sorry about that. I have to keep my eyes out for things like that. Now you can see what I've been doing. You must have been wondering what the hell's he talking about. And with some of this Payne's grey, we want to work into this area over here, which we will moisten again before we do, and we'll bring into that damp some more areas of contrast in this bottom area of the smoke. And dampening over here, we'll do a similar thing. Not too damp. we will bring in again a little area here that is softer, but a little contrast in there. It's actually where the bridge carries on going behind the smoke, and the smoke thins slightly, and you can see a little of the blue grey of the bridge coming through. In this area here, it goes quite dark, and so I'm still gently working in into the this area here, and taking it, knocking it down. We actually are going to go fairly dark with the steam in this area, because as it goes into the trees, we're going to have the trees cutting over the top of this, and because the trees are going to be at this area are going to be very dark, this won't seem half as dark when those trees go in. It's all about patience, and it's all about trying to be subtle with your brush strokes. Now then, let's go here and put in the sharp lines in the bridge. I'm almost happy enough with that. Just a little touch down here. hopefully when we start putting the trees in a little while, in a few minutes, we're going to end up with a nice smoky appearance. Right, I think I can happily start to work on the trees. But into the edge here of the sky, we're going to be bringing the trees. But as the trees, let me put the main picture back at the start that I'm working on the screen again. You can see that as the trees are in front of the sky, the trees have little gaps between the leaves where we can see the sky popping through. Rather than try and paint all that in fiddly, it's much easier for us to go back to our trusty masking fluid, checking, of course, that the paper is dry, and it needs to be dry. Do not ever put masking fluid onto wet paper. It doesn't bode well. You will end up ripping the surface of the paper as you take it off. But basically, as you want to just pop along the edge here and going into the inside, areas of masking fluid. We can even come over here and pop one or two here. Doesn't matter, there's no sky colour in the background, it will pop through anyway as light, and we can always darken it if we want to. What I'm trying to do is to create little dots, slightly different shapes. Don't want them to be all the same size, don't want them to be all the same shape, because we want a little bit of light to pop through, just like we want a bit to pop through here. That's it. That's it, just enough. The rest of it can be done with a brush. What's the time? 12:40, okay. I suppose I've been on now for about an hour and a half, I think, to get to this stage. And I'm quite pleased with the way that's coming. Let's go back to the above. There we go. Please feel free to ask me anything if you want to as we go along. If you want to ask about anything that I'm doing, or talk about the weather, I don't care. Anything. It's always nice to interact with people. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start working some greens. Now, these greens on this picture in general are not that bright. They are... It's a dull day. And on a dull day, like it is a bit dull today as I look outside, the trees, apart from the trees in this area, where's my camera? There, the trees just the other side of the my brush there that I'm pointing at. There are some leaves there that are light in tone. But a lot of the trees, the greens are muted in this, so we don't want to put on a lot of bright, vibrant green. We want to put on a green that is going to be, oh, bad boy. I have not left that bit long enough. We need to get that masking fluid off there. I'll work that in a bit. What we don't want is masking fluid and wet paper, and that's that little blob up there just wasn't dry enough. The rest of it is dry, I can see. It's just that one bit. You always got to be careful as you're working. You don't want to have your masking fluid running into your paint. On the edges here, I'm just going to give a jagged edge which will be accentuated by the masking fluid that we put on. On a raggedy edges, the leaves so a lot of trees have raggedy edges and bits that stick out and bits that go in different directions, and that's what we're trying to get a feel of here. We're trying to get that raggedy edge and we're going to come over into the steam. And we're going to let a lot of the time here, we're going to let the masking fluid do the work for us underneath and keep us the spaces that we want. Get rid of that hard edge it will disappear into the, there'll be areas of dark going in that will obliterate it, so I'm not over worried, to be honest. I'm going to treat this all as one tree. Again, let's create a little bit more of the green, but remembering to mute it down. A little bit of Payne's grey in there. At times taking it down to let's let ourselves have a little bit of a brighter green, a little more yellowy, just in this bit here, a bit there, this bit here. Going again into the much more muted green over here. At the moment it's just splodgy, I know. What we're doing is we're working just areas of toning. We will pick shape out in a minute because it's going to be the dark that goes in. It's going to be the dark that goes in that gives us that sculpturing, that gives us the shaping. Just knock a little bit out here. Well, it's still slightly on the wet side. what you want to be doing here, well, what I do anyway, what I am doing is, you can do it however you want, it's up to you. But what I am doing is I am letting the brush dance over the surface of the paper, keeping it moving, not staying in one place for too long. Not using the tip much. Occasionally I will come up in a little while areas like this and use the very tip of the brush to give the sensation of the twigs at the edges of these branches, just popping out. But other than that, I'm just keeping it gentle, trying to keep gaps, trying to keep interest in particular areas. I am not trying to draw at any time individual leaves. What I'm doing is I am creating texture, because and I talked about this yesterday, I think it was, or the day before. What this is all about is fooling your eye. What you see when you look out of the window, what I see when I look out of my window, I see a lot of trees, and those trees, I don't see the individual tree as I look at them. I don't see the individual leaves, they're there, but what I see at a glance are textures. And so what I'm making is textures, texture patterns that in the end, when you've got enough of them in there, are going to give you a tree feel. And there's nothing in a tree that is just a straight line. Everything is wonky. Everything is where textures change from one area to the next. I'm using the photograph as inspiration at this point. I am not trying to draw every leaf, every exact shape that's in these trees. That would be far too painstaking and far too unnecessary, because we can create textures, and when you step back from the painting, because nobody stands with their nose against a painting unless they're another artist. I say, in general, people don't look at that. People look at a painting from a few feet away in general, then they'll go up to it. But I think what should happen, for my 2 pennies, for what it's worth, for me, what should happen is, from a distance, they should look and go, wow, look at that. That's, I don't mind if they say, wow, that looks like a photograph, that looks real, that looks, oh, that's amazing, and all that sort of thing. But when they get closer, they should start to see brush marks. They should start to see paint. And that should be the magic. The magic should be for me that this pigment, this stuff, these marks that this person has put onto the paper have made you think that you are seeing something that you're seeing a scene. I mean, this is going to be a scene. This is, we're recreating this scene here. And the person is going to see a train and trees and railway tracks and all these things. But as they get closer, they should see the paint. That's the exciting bit. The reason I said that the only person you see with their nose up against a canvas or a piece of paper or whatever we're talking are the artists, because we do that. I do that. I go to a gallery and I look at the wonderful paintings and I take them in and I enjoy them and all that sort of thing. But there's part of me that's constantly looking and seeing how they've done this and what they're doing there and how that compares in any way with what I do. And so I'm right up against the painting with my nose against the glass or the whatever canvas, desperately looking to see how they've applied the paint. Getting a bit weary. I think it might be time to stop soon and go and get some lunch. try and get a little bit more done here. Right, I think that is enough for this morning, and I shall go and take a break, get some lunch, and I shall be back in here this afternoon to work on this really enjoyable and interesting to work on painting from the life of my friend on Facebook, James, and his son, who I believe is train mad. It's coming. It's coming. Ah. Yeah. Let's take a photograph of that for to show everybody where we're at, and I shall bid you all adieu and see you in a couple of hours' time, probably.